Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to another video. Disclaimer: none of the events mentioned are true. No idol is being harmed in the video. Any idol doesn't have a negative role. And now we will start our story. The mall was buzzing with chatter, the sound of footsteps echoing through polished floors as families strolled past bright storefronts. Jungkook hated public places like this, yet sometimes he had no choice. Appearance mattered, and his presence was enough to make headlines. Camera discreetly followed him, fans whispered his name, and flashes went off from a distance as though he were a celebrity. He kept his head down, expression cold, his tall frame cutting through the crowd like a shadow. The polished black suit he wore screamed wealth, and the arrogance in his stride warned others not to approach. People admired him from afar, but no one dared come too close, until a tiny hand tugged at his pant leg. Dada! The shrill, innocent voice cut through the noise, stuttered. Jungkook froze, then turned his head slowly. A little boy, maybe 4 years old, stood there with sparkling brown eyes and wide grin. His messy hair bounced as he looked up at him with pure joy. Jungkook frowned. "What did you just say?" "Dada," the boy repeated, laughing as though it were the most natural thing in the world. He held out his arms as if expecting a hug. Shock flickered across Jungkook's face, quickly replaced by irritation. People were already staring. Phones were raised, ready to record. A scandal sparked from Smila's misunderstanding. His jaw tightened. "I'm not your dada, kid," Jungkook snapped, voice sharp, cold enough to silence the curious murmurs around him. The boy blinked, confused, but his smile didn't flatter. He tilted his head, studying Jungkook, as though he couldn't understand why the man was denying something so obvious. Jungkook licked his tongue and stepped back, brushing off invisible dust where the child had touched him. His piercing eyes scanned the crowd. Where the hell are the kids' parents? Before he could storm away, a breathless voice called out, "Minhu!" A young woman pushed through the crowd, face flushed from running, her simple clothes clinging to her from the summer heat. She rushed towards the boy, scooping up in her arms protectively. The boy pouted, pointing at Jungkook again. "Mommy, that's Dada." Her eyes widened in panic. "Minhu, hush!" she whispered fiercely, bowing her head towards Jungkook in apology. "I'm so sorry, sir. Please forgive me. He doesn't know what he's saying." Jungkook stared at her. She looked fragile, almost too heavy, too small for the heavy burden of carrying a child in her arms. Dark circles underlined her tired eyes, and though her face was youthful, it was worn by hardship. There was no designer bag, no sparkling jewelry, no trace of wealth. Just a plain cotton dress and a pair of scuffed shoes. She looked like she belonged nowhere near in this world. His lips curled. Keep your child away from me. The woman flinched, clutching her son tighter, as if shielding him from Jungkook venom. She bowed again, voice trembling. I will. I'm sorry. Without another word, she hurried away, disappearing into the crowd, with the boy still pointing over her shoulder. But the child's voice echoed in Jungkook's mind long after they vanished. Dada. Why was he so certain? That night, Jungkook poured himself a glass of whiskey in his penthouse. The city lights sprawling endlessly beyond the glass windows. He tried to forget the incident, but the boy's innocent eyes haunted him. He had never seen the child before. He was sure of it. Then why? Why did the kid look at him as if he were someone familiar, someone loved? He scoffed and shook his head. Ridiculous. Jungkook Jeon, high to Korea's largest conglomerate, didn't have time for children. He barely tolerated adults. Meanwhile, in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of the cities, Jimin tucked Minhu into a thin mattress on the floor. The child was still giggling, holding his little toy car in one hand. Mommy, he said sleepily, why didn't Dada hug me? Her heart clenched. She brushed his hair back gently. Because he isn't your Dada, baby. Yes, he is, Minhu insisted stubbornly, his lips forming a pout. He is my Dada. Her throat tightened. She forced a smile, hiding the storm inside her. You are just imagining things. Now sleep, all right? But long after her son drifted into dreams, Jimin sat in the dim light, her mind replaying the look on Jungkook's face. Cold, cutting, untouchable. He was nothing like the warmth her son craved. Yet, for some reason, Minhu Hurt refused to accept that truth. Flashback. Jimin had never known what it felt like to have a family. She was an orphan, abandoned as a baby at the gates of a run-down orphanage. She grew up learning not to expect love. Hand-me-down lodges, leftover food, and careless scoldings were all she knew. But she was strong. She learned to smile, even when her stomach growled, to comfort younger kids when they cried, to keep her dreams alive when reality crushed them. She worked harder than anyone else, cleaning, studying, helping, always hoping that someday someone would choose her. But that day never come and no one ever did. At 16, she was forced to leave the orphanage, carrying nothing but a few clothes and a notebook filled with sketches she made in her lonely nights. She worked in dinners, washed dishes, served tables, cleaned offices, anything that would put a proof in her head. Life was cruel, but she refused to break. Then she made one mistake, one reckless decision of trusting the wrong person, and suddenly she was a mother. She was barely 18 when Minhu was born. Everyone told her to give him up, that she couldn't survive raising a child alone, that she was too young, too pure. But the first time she held him, teeny and fragile in her arms, she knew she could never let him go. Her world changed. Every sleepless night, every extra job, every tear, she bore it all from him. Minhu was a reason to live. Though she couldn't give him luxury, she gave him everything else: love, patience, honesty, kindness. She taught him to smile even when days were hard, to share even when they had little, to dream even when the world seemed too big. But Minho was curious. He saw other children with fathers and asked questions. Jimin didn't know how to answer. Where is my Dada? Why don't I have one? She would smile softly, hiding the ash in her chest. You have me, isn't that enough? And Minho would nod, but his eyes always wandered, searching for something he couldn't name until the day he saw Jungkook. On the other side of the world, Jungkook's life was the perfect opposite. Born with a golden spoon, he had never known struggle. From the moment he entered the world, he was showered with love, wealth, and prestige. His father was the head of Korea's largest corporation. His mother, a celebrated philanthropist. Every magazine, every headline, every whisper spoke of him as the perfect hire. By 25, he had already proven himself in the business world. Sharp, ruthless, intelligent, he made decisions that increased the company's fortune and secured his place as the most powerful bachelor in the country. Women adored him, men envied him, the media worshipped him. But behind the polished smile and tailored suit was a man frozen by distrust. Jungkook had learned early that people wanted him not for who he was, but for what he had. Friend tries to use him for connections. Women confessed their love, but their eyes always lingered on his wealth. Even family alliances revolved around money, not affection. So he built walls. He let no one in. His heart turned cold. His trust shattered. To him, love was nothing more than a transaction. He had everything except wealth, warmth, and then one random afternoon, a boy called him Dada. The city never slept, and neither did Jungkook thoughts. Days passed, yet the echo of that little boy's voice lingered in his head like a welcome ghost. Dada, the innocence of it bothered him more than any insult ever could. He tried to bury himself in work, board meetings, endless presentations, signing contracts. These things usually consumed him, yet, yet at odd moments, when silence settled, he would picture those wide brown eyes staring at him with certainty, as if the boy knew something Jungkook didn't. Mr. John, should we proceed with the merger? His secretary asked one morning. Jungkook blinked, realizing he hadn't heard a word of the past 10 minutes. Annoyed at himself, he slammed the folder shut. Do whatever you think is best. I don't have time for this today. His secretary eyes widened. Jungkook never left decision in anyone else's hand, but he was already walking out. His thoughts elsewhere, on the other side of the city. Jimmy balanced three trays in a small restaurant, waving between tables with practice case. Her uniform was faded, her shoes worn thin, but she kept her smile alive for the sake of tips. Minhy was in the corner, coloring in a notebook, waiting patiently until her shift ended. Customers often gooed at him, calling him adorable, giving him candies. Jimin would always thank them politely, though her heart ached, knowing she couldn't give him the luxuries other kids had. When her shift ended, she scooped Minhu up, exhausted but relieved. He wrapped his small arms around her neck. "Mommy," he whispered, "will Dada come again?" Her heart skipped. "Baby, we already talked about this. He's a new Dada," but Minhu shook his head stubbornly. "Yes, he is. I feel it here." He pressed his hand against his chest, where his tiny heart beat third with conviction. Fate, however, seemed to laugh at Jimmy's attempt to keep their world apart. 1 week later, Jungkook's sleek black car pulled up outside the very same restaurant. It wasn't a place he would ever choose, too ordinary, too noisy. But his business partner insisted they meet there for discretion. The moment he stepped eyes inside, heads turned. His presence commanded attention like a storm roaring through calm skies. Jimin, busy wiping a table, froze as her eyes landed on him. Her stomach twisted. She quickly turned away, lowering her head. "Not here, please, not now." But Minho noticed before she could stop him. His little face lit up. "Dada!" "Minho, no!" Jimin whispered desperately, pulling him back, but it was too late. The boy ran toward Jungkook, nearly stumbling over his tiny legs. Jungkook's sharp eyes fell on him immediately. Surprise flickered, followed by a strange tightness in his chest. The boy's joy was unfiltered. His arm stretched out once more. "Dada, you came back?" The restaurant fell silent. Customers stared, whispering. Jungkook felt heat crawl up his neck. He hated attention of this kind, yet he couldn't ignore the little boy clinging to him. "I told you already, I'm not your Dada," Jungkook said firmly, his voice low but cutting. Still, Minho only grinned wider, tugging on Jungkook's sleeve as if he trying to prove him wrong. Jimin rushed over, breathless. She scooped Minho into her arms, bowing repeatedly. "I'm so sorry, sir. He won't bother you again, I promise." Jungkook's gaze lingered on her. Sweat clung to her forehead. Her hand shook as she held her son close. Her uniform looked 2 sizes too big, yet somehow it made her appear even smaller. She wouldn't meet his eyes as though ashamed to exist in his presence. Something twisted inside him. Irritation, curiosity, and an emotion he refused to name. His partner arrived, greeting him, and Jungkook turned away, dismissing the incident. But his mind stayed restless throughout the meeting. Who was that woman, and why did her son look at him with such certainty? That night, Jungkook found himself searching. It wasn't difficult, it was easy for him. His resources could uncover a woman in the city within hours. He had a file on Park Jimin, orphan, single mother, works 2 jobs, no known family, barely survives month to month. His eyes lingered on a line about her son, Park Minhu, age 4. Jungkook had tightened around the file. Something about the name tugged at him, though he couldn't explain why. Why did the boy want into nothing, insist on trying himself to Jungkook, who had everything? Meanwhile, Jimin tucked Minhu into bed again. She kissed his forehead, whispering, "Sleep, my love, sleep. Go." But Minhu's little head clenched. "Mommy, why doesn't Dada love me?" Her chest shattered. She bit her lips to stop tears from falling. "Because he isn't your Dada, sweetheart. You only have me." But Minhu shook his head stubbornly, eyes glistening. "He is. One day you will see. Dada will come for us." Jimin turned away, hiding her trembling shoulders. She couldn't let her son live in such a dream. Jungkook Jeon wasn't a man who saved people. He was a man who crushed them if they stood in his way. And yet, in the quiet of the night, Jimin wondered why fate had let their paths cross at all. For Jungkook, the question refused to leave his mind. He replayed every detail: Minhu's smile, Jimin's bowed head, the desperation in her voice. People usually discussed him. He saw through their greed, their lies, their hunger for his wealth. But that woman, she hadn't asked for everything. She had only apologized, as though her existence were a burden. And the boy, his laughter, his stubbornness, his unshaken belief, was unlike anything Junk had ever faced. For the first time in years, Jungkook felt unsettled. Days later, he found himself driving past the shabby neighborhood where Jimin lived. He told himself it was coincidence, yet he slowed down when he saw her outside, hanging clothes on a rusty line. Minhu was chasing a paper ball, laughing as it rolled across the cracked pavement. Jungkook stayed hidden in his car watching. Jimin looked tired, but when Minhu ran to her, she smiled with a warmth that softened her entire face. She knelt, fixing his shirt, kissing his cheeks. The boy beamed, hugging her tightly. Jungkook's chest tightened. That kind of love, pure, unconditional, was something he had never experienced, and it left a bitter taste on his tongue. Later that night, as he lay in his expensive bed, surrounded by silence, Jungkook admitted something he never thought he would. He wanted to see him again, not for answers, not for responsibility, but because a part of him, buried under years of ice, was curious about what it would feel like to step into that warmth. The playground was filled with laughter that afternoon. Children ran across the grass, their shoes kicking up dust, their giggles echoing under the golden light of late spring. Minho sat quietly on the swing, clutching a half-broken toy car, his little feet brushing the ground. Around him, groups of children played tag with their fathers, cheering with sidelines. Some dads pushed their kids higher on the swings, others helped steady bicycles, and a few held ice creams for the little ones. Everywhere Minho looked, he saw pairs of fathers and children, laughter woven between them like invisible threads. His small chest edged with something he couldn't name. He turned his gaze to his mother, who was sitting on a worn park bench nearby, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She was smiling at him, but her eyes carried the same tiredness they always did. Jimin always smiled for him, even when her body was aching from working double shifts. Even when she barely had time to eat, she was his everything, his warmth, his comfort, his world. Yet deep inside, a question had been growing. When another children's father lifted his daughter into the air, spinning until she squeaked with joy, Minhu couldn't hold it anymore. He dragged his little feet across the ground, letting the swing come to stop, then walked toward Jimin. Mommy? Yes, baby. Jimin brushed back his hair, her smile soft as always. Where's my Dada? The question slipped through her heart. Jimin's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she quickly masked it again. Why do you ask that, sweetheart? Because Minho hesitated, his small fingers tightening around his toy. Everyone else has a Dada to play with them, buy them things, hug them. But I don't have one. His big brown eyes searched hers. Don't I have a Dada too? Jimin swallowed hard. How many times had she dreaded this day? How many times had she rehearsed answers in her mind, only to throw them away because none of them felt right? She forced a laugh, brushing his chest gently. You have me, baby. Isn't mommy enough? Minhu frowned, his lips shooting out in a pout. Yes, but where is he? Did he go somewhere? Will he come back? Her throat tightened. How could she tell him the truth? That she had been abandoned. That he had been born in a world where father didn't always stay. That his family was only the two of them. He was too young for that kind of pain. So she leaned forward, kissed his forehead, and whispered, You are my little man, Minho. You don't need anyone else. One day, when you are older, I will tell you everything. For now, just know I love you more than anything. Minho nodded, though confusion lingered in his eyes. He didn't understand, but he didn't push further. Still, the question dug itself into his heart, refusing to leave. A few weeks later, fate answered him in its own strange way. Jimin had taken Minhu downtown for groceries, walking through a crowded plaza filled with shops and vendors. She held his small hand tightly, waving through the sea of people. That's when Minhu saw him. A tall man in black suit walked past, his presence commanding even among the crowd. His stride was confident, his jaw sharp, his dark hair falling perfectly into place. People moved aside instinctively, whispering his name. Cameras flashed directly, capturing his image. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys liked the video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. For more videos, you have to subscribe my channel. That's it for bye bye. See you soon. Take care.